Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is apprehend, and this verb was suggested by the viewer Abdi. Abdi, thank you so much for this suggestion. Now, let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or ways that we can use this verb. The first way you might encounter the verb apprehend can mean to arrest someone for a crime. As I looked for real examples of this verb being used online in various forms of media, this was by far the most common usage for the verb. So you'll see it used in connection to a variety of law enforcement type action. And again, it's that idea, just another word for arresting. Sometimes people will use it to mean they have caught an alleged or suspected person of committing a crime. A second way to use the verb apprehend means to understand, perceive, or become aware of something. This definition is a little less commonly seen, especially in everyday usage, but we will still look at and talk about some examples of this a little bit later in the video. For now, you should know that apprehend is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms apprehending. The past tense and the participle form of the verb can be made by adding ed. Now the base verb, apprehend, ends in that voiced D sound. This means when I add the ed ending, I'm going to make an id sound, and I'll add an extra syllable to the word when I say it. The past tense and the participle form of the verb should sound like this. Apprehended, apprehended. Okay. Now, we don't have any phrasal verbs that we need to study, so instead, we can move on to a little verb tense practice. Today, we're going to review the present perfect and the simple future. Let's start with the present perfect. We can use this verb tense in a couple of different situations. We can use it to describe an action that started in the past and continues into the present. We can also use it to discuss a completed action that occurred at an unknown point in the past. So many times when we talk about simple past tense, right, we're talking about completed at a known time. So that's what makes this a little different. We may not be communicating as to whether this action occurred an hour ago in the past tense, a week ago, a year ago, and it may just not matter. Okay. But what you can notice here is present perfect has two letter P's, and this means you need two parts to make your verb. We're going to be using a present form of have and then the participle form of the verb. And have has two forms in the present, so this means we need to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, we'll use have and then our participle form of the verb. But if our subject is he, she, or it, we'll use has and then the participle form of the verb. Let's take a look at some example sentences. In the affirmative or positive, I have here, we have apprehended the suspect. This sentence or something very similar to it is used many times at press conferences, especially in regards to kind of serious crimes, serious events, maybe where people have been a little fearful or scared that a dangerous person is kind of on the loose, right? And so sometimes the statement is said to kind of give that reassurance. This person has been arrested. Now, if you want to make a negative present perfect sentence, again, you've got to pay attention to your subject. You'll use either have not and then the participle form of the verb, or has not and then the participle. Of course, you can use contractions, so have not can become haven't, and has not can become hasn't. We can see another example of this here. They aren't finding any solid leads, and they certainly haven't apprehended anyone. Again, this sentence is going back to that first definition, talking about arrests. And I saw a statement very similar to this, describing a particular type of TV show that's about cops and criminals, and this person was sort of critiquing kind of the lack of development or the lack of action. Now, if you want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect, you can start with either have or has. Whatever form matches your subject, that subject comes next, then you'll use the participle form of the verb. Here's another example. Have authorities apprehended anyone in connection to the attack on journalists? So again, this might be a question other citizens are asking as they're concerned for their own safety. So all of those present perfect examples connect back to the first definition of the verb. Now let's move on and make some sentences in the simple future. Today we're going to focus on sentences using be going to. This is really common as people discuss their plans, but you might see people use it to discuss predictions or to make promises. We are going to use a present form of be as we make sentences in this verb tense. So again, we're going to have to pay attention to our subject because we have three forms of be in the present tense. This means if your subject is I, use am going to and then the base verb. But if your subject is you, we, or they, use are, A-R-E, going to, and then the base verb. Finally, if your subject is he, she, or it, use is going to, and then the base verb. Let's take a look at an example sentence. She is going to apprehend any problems immediately. Now here, we are looking at a sentence using the second definition of the verb. This means someone's going to become aware of, they're going to perceive of any problems. This sentence was a bit similar to something I heard like a supervisor kind of promising that as this person was out on a medical leave, the person filling in for them will be able to notice if there are issues and resolve them. So she was trying to be rather reassuring in that statement. Now let's talk about making negative simple future sentences with be going to. Again, pay attention to your subject and use the form of be that matches. Then use not, going to, and then the base verb. So no suffixes or special endings on the verb here. Here's another example. There are many things in science we aren't going to apprehend in our lifetime. This really gets to kind of that idea of really having like a deep understanding, right? We can ask why about so many different things. And this was a statement I believe a professor was making to students that we may not get all the answers we have, answers to all the questions we have in our present time, but science keeps developing and finding new answers. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future with be going to. To do this, you want to start with a form of be, whatever form matches your subject. That subject comes next. Then we'll use going to and then the base verb. Here's my last example. Is the general public going to apprehend the beauty of this piece of art? So that's back to the second definition. Are they going to be able to perceive and understand? So maybe something is a little bit unusual, it's not what is thought of as being classically beautiful. So here, general public is referring to a large group of people, but this noun is still singular. That's why you see is being used in this question. Now, let's spend a moment and discuss some words that are related to our verb apprehend. The first word we'll discuss is the noun form of this word. The noun form is pronounced apprehension. Just like our verb, this noun can have a couple different meanings. The first way to use the noun is to refer to the action of arresting someone. An example of this in a sentence might be, was it a lawful apprehension? Right? So in different countries, there can be different rules around what is sort of a legal or justified way to arrest someone versus what is not. That's what that question is getting to. A second way to use the noun apprehension is to refer to anxiety or fear that something bad or unpleasant is about to happen. An example of this meaning in a sentence would be, the resulting collection captures the apprehension of the years following World War II. So this sentence was describing, I believe, a particular painter's collection of works. And they were painting scenes sort of connected to the survivors, what occurred after World War II. And at that time, right, many people still had this fear of, like, could war break out again, right? So that might be that anxiety or fear. The next word we'll look at is the adjective form apprehensive. When we use this word, we're generally describing someone or something that is anxious or fearful that something bad or unpleasant is about to happen. An example of this might be, government workers were feeling apprehensive at the end of September with the looming government shutdown. So this is a sentence describing an event in the United States. Our legislative branch failed to authorize a budget for the new fiscal year for the government, and this has resulted in many government workers being sent home, or some working without a paycheck, and many people saw this coming, right, and had that anxious feeling. The last word I'll leave you with today is the adverb apprehensively. This is describing something being done in a way that shows anxiety or fear that something bad or unpleasant is about to happen. An example of this might be, we've been waiting apprehensively all day for the test results. Now, this could be a variety of different tests. Maybe it's like a school type of test, right? Some kind of educational thing. It could also be a medical test that's making people feel like, oh, are we going to get bad news or bad information? That brings us to the end of our video today. I want to say another special thanks to Opti for suggesting today's verb. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.